Hi, welcome to Jovie's Home. I post new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. Today I'm going to be talking about 10 things that I wish Dutch people understood more about expats here in the Netherlands. So if that sounds good to you, then why don't you come on in, kick off your shoes, and stay a while. I'm really glad you're here. So you guys, of course, this being the internet, we have to give some disclaimers. So bear with me while I just get through these disclaimers because I want you to know where I'm coming from when I talk about these issues that I'm going to be speaking about today. So if you've seen any of my videos, you know that a lot of the time I'm trying to help expats integrate into Dutch society, whether that's by sharing things that I found to be different here than what was in my home country and how I adjusted to that, or just sharing all the wonderful things about the Netherlands, or even just doing helpful videos like how to buy a house or how to get a driver's license here, things like that. I'm always trying to help people integrate into Dutch society. However, this video is going to be the opposite. I'm just trying to share with the Dutch viewers some things that expats experience that maybe you haven't thought about in the past, or that you have one impression of what expat life is like, and I would just like to share with you maybe just another perspective. So that's the whole goal of this video. It's not to say someone is better than someone else or to upset anyone. It's really just I want to have like open communication and just more understanding among the locals and the expats. So that's the whole purpose of this video. When you take each point on its own, it might seem small. So if you just experience one out of the 10 things, you're gonna be like, okay, whatever, who cares? But when you look at them collectively, and this is from my experience, these are things that have happened to me and that I've experienced, together it can feel like a lot. So just keep that in mind, that when I'm talking about these things, it's all of them as a totality of circumstances and not just one by one. I also do want to say the last thing, which is that my perspective in this video, I fully acknowledge that it is from a privileged perspective. I came to the Netherlands, both my husband and I had jobs, we were here legally, and we were able to just start living here like as we did. However, there is a whole other category of people who are moving not just to the Netherlands, but all over the world, asylum seekers and those fleeing their home countries for reasons other than just, like us who moved here for a job. I do acknowledge that where I'm speaking from, like my perspective, it is from a privileged place. So I don't want to assume that everybody's experience is like this, because there are many, many others who have experienced a whole lot different and much more difficulty in integrating into society because of terrible, awful conditions that were happening in their home countries. So you guys, that's the disclaimers. I hope you understand the good place where this is coming from. This is not to bash anyone. This is not to say anything bad about anyone, but just to share so that we can all have more understanding with each other. Okay. So without further ado, let's do this. Number one, and these are not in any particular order, but the number one issue that I would say that expats face when they move here is that we are very humbled, right? And by that I mean you are presumably a grown-up who is coming here, and suddenly you find yourself in a position where you are dependent on so many other people to tell you things again. It kind of feels a little bit like you are a child again. So you are fully dependent on somebody telling you, this is how we do this, or this is how you get a BSN number, or this is how you open a bank account, or this is, learning the language. Like, you are just completely dependent on other people to help you do things that maybe you could do, or presumably you were doing back in your home country without having to ask for help on those kind of things. So for me, it was a very humbling experience to suddenly not be as free and as independent as I was before, only because I didn't know anything. Like, I didn't know the system. So that was something that was definitely a big issue for me. And not only that, but you are learning things, and as you go, while you're learning things, you have to make some big choices that and your choices have like consequences to them. So whether that's choosing a place to live and not knowing the neighborhoods, or what school your children are going to go to and not knowing the system, all of these things you are dependent on somebody else telling you, and then you have to make a big responsible decision, and you maybe don't have the full grasp of what it all means. So it is definitely a humbling experience. Number two, the number two thing I'd like to share with you guys is how difficult it can be when you arrive here and you don't know anyone. Maybe you come with your family, so you know your family, but when you come here, you don't really know anyone. And as an adult, it can be very, very difficult to actually make friends with other adults, or to break into those like already established friend groups. And I think that's why a lot of the time you're gonna see expats kind of sticking with each other, and not so much like breaking into the Dutch society. And I guess I should say expats, meaning people who don't come here like with a Dutch spouse or a partner, somebody who has a life here. It's when both partners or both people come here from another country, like me and my husband, who neither one of us is Dutch. So for us, we had no, like, I couldn't ask him like, oh hey, show me, you know, let's go hang out with your cousin or something, because that doesn't exist. So we found it much easier to make friends with other people in the expat community because they were also in a similar situation as we were. And so when you see expats like sticking together, it's not because they don't like you or because they don't want to be part of the Dutch society or don't want to integrate. It's just that it can be really challenging and really overwhelming to actually do that while you are dealing with all the rest of the things on my list. Number three, a challenge that expats faced, and this is quite a unique experience, I must say, it is that with the way that expat contracts work, most of the time you're coming here for a fixed amount of time. And so 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is. So you finally make friends with somebody, and then your friends leave because their contract now moves them somewhere else, or they're going somewhere else, or they're returning back home. So I feel like I'm constantly just saying goodbye to people all the time. You know, you make these friends, you become close, and then suddenly, boom, they're gone. They're going somewhere else. And yes, of course, you can stay in touch long distance, but it's not the same. And so that is definitely a struggle with having to say goodbye so many times. And just I just constantly feel like, sorry, technical difficulties. But no, it just feels like I'm always saying goodbye to people that I care about. Number four is actually dealing with homesickness. And when you first move to a new place, like, yes, it can be very exciting, and you know, you're getting to explore new things and find new things and find your way, and all of that is like very exciting and challenging. I mean, if you like change, certainly if you're not a person who likes change, that can also be really hugely overwhelming and burdensome. But once that newness wears off, like once you've been here for a little while and that's settled, that's, I think, at least for me, that was when I started being very, very homesick and missing my friends and missing my family and missing familiar things from home. And that was very hard to deal with, because suddenly, like, you know, I first moved here and it was very cool and, oh yeah, let's figure all this stuff out. And then when it became kind of routine and it became like a normal part of daily life, that's really when the homesickness kicked in for me. And I just was feeling very sad a lot of the time. Not because I didn't like it here. That's not, at least not for me, what homesickness is. I loved it here. Like, I've always liked it here. But you just miss the other thing. And that can be really hard. Number five is that you have to do a lot of things when you first move to not just the Netherlands. I mean, this applies for any country, but you have to learn the language, adapt to the culture, learn the new customs of the place where you're at. And that's a lot for anyone to do. But then when you add on to it, maybe you also have children. So you have to manage your job, you have to manage your kids, you have to do all of these things while simultaneously trying to adapt and integrate and learn all of these things, it's a big thing to do, and it's not easy, you know. One of the criticisms I hear a lot is, well, expats, you know, they have so much money, they don't pay enough taxes, they do this, they do that. And I'm not going to comment about that, but I do want you guys to know that on top of, well, not on top of those things, but in addition to those things, like, these are some things that issues that expats are facing all the time, and that it can be really a lot. And so things like money don't make up for all the adjustments that you have to do. And I'm not saying that it should make up for it, but I'm just saying, like, it's a lot and it's hard. And at least from my perspective, like, it doesn't matter how much you pay me when I'm really struggling in these other areas. Does that make sense? Like, I hope you know what I mean. Number 6, the number 6 thing that I wanted to share with you is just to consider. I mean, if you live in the Netherlands and you're just Dutch and you've never lived anywhere else, you're probably like annoyed at having to do bureaucratic things, like, you know, pay taxes and financial reporting and all that stuff like that you have to do in your own home country. And that, I mean, I get it, but expats usually have to do that double, because you're doing it here and you're doing it in your home country. So, and sometimes if you're an expat that's been moved from country to country to country, you might have to do it in additional countries. So that is just something that is a huge thing, that you really are trying always to remember, like, oh, okay, I need to report this in this country and I need to do this in that country. And it's bureaucracy and it's like a lot. So yeah, that's something you should know about expats, is that all the things that you're dealing with, we're dealing with too, plus more. Before we get to the last 3 items, I do want to ask you, please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and subscribe to my channel if you're into this type of content. Here's one, which is number 7, and that's the one that I struggle with, I would say, more than any other item on this list. And that is having small kids and no family around. It's not the same when your family comes to visit, but it is basically, you have no freedom unless you have the funds to hire babysitters, and not everyone does. And, you know, for example, if my husband and I want to do anything at all, we can't just drop off the kids at grandma's house. Here, I'll even give you an example. We had some water damage in our berging in our shed, which you can even see here behind me. We had some water come in, and then it became moldy in the roof. So that's been sprayed and taken care of, but it really needs like a good thorough cleaning. And in order to do that, we need to take everything out of the shed, clean it all, check it for damage, seal all the stuff. I mean, there's like work that needs to be done on the shed. And how much I would love to be able to take my 2 kids to grandma's house for Saturday, maybe even for a weekend, you know, that they can sleep at grandma's, so that my husband and I can do that without having small kids running in and being like, oh, what's this? Let me touch it. Let me lick it. Let me try it. So things like that we cannot do, because I don't have a place where I can send them. Like, I don't have that kind of support. And so it really requires like a lot of thinking and like planning to be able to have small freedoms like this, or to go to a movie, or to go to dinner, or whatever, like to do something. Yeah, every single thing is a consideration. Can I pay for it? Can I afford it? And am I going to be able to have a babysitter on this and this day? You know, it's a lot. So having a family here as expats means giving up a lot of small freedoms that people who are not expats and have family around might, or not just family, but also friends who you've been friends with for your whole life, and then you don't mind to ask them something like that. Like, I don't have anyone in my life that I would feel comfortable here in the Netherlands to ask them for a favor like that, to watch my kids for a weekend. So yeah, that's a big one. All right, number 8. The number 8 issue or item that I would like to share with you guys is the challenge of actually, if you have children, of helping your children integrate to the country while you yourself are integrating. Now, this is not an issue that I've experienced, because both of my children were born here, so they're being raised here, and you know, they've had the experience. Well, my older one has gone to kinderopvang, which is daycare, and the younger one, she will go to Peuterspeelzaal or preschool here. So they're growing up like in Dutch society. But I'm thinking more like if you are somebody who has, I don't know, a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, and you're suddenly moving here with your teenagers or, you know, whatever, just the issues of trying to help your own kids find their ground and find stability while you yourself are still struggling maybe to integrate or to find your own way here. I don't think it should be underestimated how challenging it can be if your kid comes to you from school and says, oh, mama, what does this mean? Or a kid called me this on the playground, or, you know, being asked something and you yourself don't know the answer. So you're not able to support your child or help them in that moment. The feeling as a parent of not being able to provide like that stability or that information for your kids is really not a small issue, and it shouldn't be taken lightly, I don't think. So that is certainly something that a lot of expats experience, and, you know, trying to make the right choices for their kids, as I said earlier in another point, without having all the information up front for yourself, it is challenging. Number 9. We're almost to the end, but number 9, I think that it shouldn't be underestimated how difficult it can be to get used to things that might seem small, like the climate or the food. And I'm not saying either of those things is bad, but for example, again, I'll take myself as an example. I moved here from Arizona in the United States, and Arizona is a desert. Where I grew up, it rained 6 days a year, 6 times a year, and every other day was bright and sunny and warm. And there were so many things that I just didn't expect them here. And I'm not saying that they're bad, but they were just so different. So for example, in Arizona, I had a barbecue that just like lived outside in the garden, and anytime you wanted to, you would just go to your barbecue and use it. Well, when I came here, I bought a barbecue and we had it in our garden, and I didn't have a cover for it just because I never had one in Arizona before. And then that barbecue completely rusted because it rained so much. Like, and I know this, you're like, oh, she's so stupid, but it's not stupidity. It's just not having to do that before. Also, winter tires. There's no such thing as winter tires in Arizona. So when I came here and got a car, and they're like, oh, you need to buy an extra set of tires. I'm like, why? And they're like, winter. Oh crap, winter tires, summer tires. Now it's like another thing to keep track of. So when I'm saying like adjust to the climate and the food, it is not about like, oh, the weather is good or the weather is crap. It's just so many other things that are related to weather and food that you have to get used to and you have to learn. So it might seem small or silly, but it was something that, you know, I've ruined things like my barbecue, just because I had never experienced like this kind of climate before. So I don't know. What do you think? And then, okay, so we've reached the 10th point. The 10th point that I want to mention is something, and I'm really curious if you're watching this, what is your opinion about this? Like, please, like, let me know in the comments, like, what you think about this. But in my experience, like, after being an expat somewhere, I no longer feel like I really belong anywhere. When I go to Arizona, I don't feel like I'm Arizonian. When I'm in the Netherlands, I don't feel Dutch. I mean, I feel like it's like everything's fine, like no matter where I go, but I no longer feel like I have like solid roots like in one particular place. Like there are little pieces of me everywhere that I've gone. And so as an expat, it's very hard also to go home, because after being away for like a period of years and like all the things have, you know, things have changed where you were before, you weren't there to like change with it or to grow with it. And although it's more familiar, or it might seem more familiar, you as a person have changed from the experience of being an expat somewhere else. And it's very interesting, I think, that feeling of I no longer really 100% fit in anywhere, whether that's in your home country or in the Netherlands. The feeling of belonging is kind of I personally feel it in both places, but at the same time, like the only place I really feel 100% is inside of my own house, because that's with my own, stuff and stuff. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, I'm really curious to hear from you. If you're an expat, if you've experienced expat life anywhere, even if you're Dutch and you yourself were moved to another country, did you experience some of these issues or things that I talked about in the video? I'm curious to hear from you. If you're a Dutch person and you haven't been anywhere, and have you thought about this, like from the expat perspective? Have you thought about any of these or others? Like, are there other things that you can add to the conversation? What are your thoughts? What are your impressions about this? I'm really curious. So please do share them in the comments below. And I hope we can have like a constructive conversation. Please, the only thing I'm going to ask is don't be hateful. Don't bash other people. Everybody has a life story, and everybody's life story has a lot of hardships and pains and challenges and, well, wins and, ups and downs and everything that we don't know about someone else. So we shouldn't be just hateful to anybody. So that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much for coming over. I really appreciate any time that you spent with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that we can have like a nice conversation, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks for coming over. See you soon. Bye.